Here are your tickets to Belize. You'll be there for 4 nights. Speak to the local businesses, inspect the area, and send me updates. If we can pull this project off, we'll be making millions. Alright, I'll contact you when I reach there. Good luck. Calvin Ross was a marketing specialist. He worked for Irvine Laron, one of the biggest fashion stores and brand names across the US. The owner, Irvine Laron, his boss, had been doing business with small entrepreneurs in Belize. But ever since tourism had peaked significantly in the small Caribbean country, he had been considering opening another outlet of the store there. So he assigned Calvin with the task of finding the perfect location in Belize. Calvin was looking forward to this trip. It was almost like a paid vacation for him. He boarded his flight the next morning, and after a small 5-hour flight from Florida, he reached Belize sometime around 3 p.m. Picking up a few brochures and pamphlets, he walked out of the airport and headed out to search for a reasonable place to stay. Belize was known for couples coming to honeymoon, destination weddings, vacation getaways, but all Calvin really needed was a single room for a few nights, preferably somewhere quiet. Traveling about half an hour from the shore, Calvin booked into a small hotel. The room he chose had a semi-ocean view, but there were no windows. Instead, the view was from the balcony. The balcony, however, was located to the front of the hotel, but since there were next to no stores or houses in the surrounding area, it was peaceful and quiet. There weren't many facilities available at the hotel either. So after dropping off his luggage, Calvin went out to have dinner a little early at 5 p.m. This neighborhood was secluded. The marketplace was a 20-minute walk to the right, and the beach shore was a 10-minute walk to the left. There were only a handful of stores in the area, and Calvin wasn't really sure what or where he was going to eat. He set off walking until he started to see some of the locals and a few stores. Though none were places to eat, rather they were all stalls of fruits and vegetables. Was he going to have to cook back at the hotel now, or spend a night on some exotic fruits? Luckily, Calvin spotted a small open diner, or more like a hut, and sat down checking out the menu. Rice, everything is with rice. As he flipped the pages, rice and beans seemed like a staple in Belizean food, but it wasn't a staple in Calvin's diet. "Are you ready to order?" asked the waitress. Hello. I'm not too familiar with the cuisine here. Is there anything you would recommend? "Oh, sure. How about this curried chicken? It's the best dish on the menu." "Alright, then I guess I'll go with that." It was within a while that the waitress brought out a delicious tray of food for Calvin. However, as soon as Calvin saw the red-hot stewed chicken curry, the rice and beans and potato salad on the side, Calvin knew this was going to be one tough meal for him. And it was. Calvin felt like his mouth was on fire. He began to sweat and had finished almost half of the jug of water. By the time the waitress came around and stared at him nervously, she brought a glass in her hands and gave it to him. "This is our special fruit smoothie. You're lucky it's the season for custard apples. You can't enjoy this fruit all the time. It's sweet," she said with a chuckle. Wiping the sweat off his forehead, Calvin smiled, gulping the smoothie down. "Thank you." "No problem." Calvin wasn't able to finish his food. He gave in to the heat of the habaneros, stuck to the potato salad and his custard apple smoothie, and hurried to leave, feeling just a little embarrassed. "Come back again." Calvin smiled at the young woman as he walked out the diner and towards the hotel. It was almost sunset now, and people were starting to pack up. Calvin, too, decided to call it a day when he reached the hotel. He got into bed and began checking his emails and catching up on some work. It was around 10, however, that Calvin couldn't fall asleep. He was hungry. So he went out again to see if he could manage some snacks. There was a sweet breeze in the air. The moon was out. Calvin enjoyed walking down these mud roads. It was quite dark, but accessible, a lone street lamp far off from one another. Calvin began walking down towards the market. He did see a few small stalls on the way, and he had no problem going for some fruit this time. Unfortunately, when he reached the marketplace, he found everything closed. Not wanting to exhaust himself even more, he turned to go back, pretty disappointed. But moments into reaching the narrow road again, Calvin started to feel a little uneasy. He stopped, listening closely to the gentle motion of the leaves rustling in the trees above him. But there was something that made him feel like someone was watching him. When the feeling lingered, Calvin began to suppose he was being followed. He turned on his small pocket flashlight and turned around. But there was no one there. He quickened his pace and soon reached near the hotel, when he suddenly stopped, seeing something in the distance. To the opposite side, he noticed 2 stray dogs standing still, staring at him. Calvin too stood still, not wanting to provoke them. Was it those dogs following me this whole time? But when Calvin took a few steps forward, the dogs suddenly looked like they got frightened and ran off the other way. And honestly, Calvin too was relieved they did. After a long, tiring night, the next morning, Calvin managed to find a cafe in the busy part of town where he bought some sweet coconut cookies and a steaming cup of coffee to start his day. He then inspected the area, met a few local businessmen and some clients, and so far, things were looking positive for the project. Later that day, he headed to the shore to enjoy the blue waves. As he was walking there, he stopped, quite intrigued, seeing a large tree. It had twisted roots and branches and a strange fruit hanging from it. Must be native to Belize. As the afternoon came to pass, this time Calvin was sure to take preparations for the long night ahead. On his way back, he stepped into a small bakery about 20 minutes away from the hotel and stood there, trying to read the Crayola labels on the price board. Are you here to order or to pick up? If you're here to order cake, it will take 3 days for the delivery, a young woman said from behind the counter. She was wearing a sundress, an apron stained with flour, her hair a little messed up, tied back into a bun, not too much to show off, but there was something about her smile, her eyes that caught Calvin's attention. She was beautiful. "Excuse me, can I help you?" she said, wiping her hands on a towel and waving at him. Calvin awkwardly asked, "Would you happen to have anything to eat as a midnight snack, like cookies?" The young woman furrowed her brows and looked at him. She suddenly chuckled and said, "You're not from here, and you're not used to the food either, are you?" "Yeah, I'm from America. Calvin Ross. I was staying at the hotel about 15 minutes away from here. I was searching for a restaurant, but there aren't many around here, and last time I went, let's just say it wasn't a good experience." "Well, if you can wait, I can bake some dry cake for you." "I would love that." "I'm Felicity. Take a seat." "Is it going to take a while?" Felicity stirred up the cake mixture in a bowl. "Yes, it is going to take a while. As you can see, I work here alone. This is my bakery." "It must be difficult running a bakery all by yourself." "Well, there aren't many people in this neighborhood, so I don't get a lot of orders. But then, I'm the only baker in this neighborhood, so business is alright. How about you? Are you here on vacation?" "No, I'm actually on a business trip. The company I work for used to supply products to small businesses in this area. But since tourism has really spiked here, we're thinking of opening one of our stores, and I'm here to inspect the location." Felicity placed the cake into the oven and patted the flowers off her hands as she returned to the counter. "But if you open such a large business here, what will happen to the small businesses? They'll all have to shut down." "Yes, but this will help develop the small town. There will be more job opportunities at the store. The people will be able to work there." Felicity shook her head. They were doing well on their own. They were independent business owners, but now they're going to be employees. Calvin was quite impressed, smart and beautiful. "So, how long are you staying here?" "Just 2 more days. Still have a few more locations to check. By the way, are there a lot of dogs in this area?" Dogs. Yes, I was walking out the other night and I saw a couple of stray dogs following me. Oh, yeah, these dogs do that. They don't like tourists. What? Just joking. They're harmless animals. With the sound of the oven, Felicity took out the dry cakes and packed them into a box. Calvin took out his wallet and was about to pay when Felicity smiled. That's all right. It's a gift. Do you think I make dry cakes for my customers? She said, raising her brow. Calvin chuckled. Thank you. And in that case, if you wouldn't mind, I'll see you again tomorrow. When do you open? See you at 9 a.m. That night, at around 11, after Calvin wrapped up on his work, he sat out on the balcony enjoying his snack while he cooled off. Carried away in his thoughts, he was a bit startled seeing one of those stray dogs sitting just a distance away on the ground below, staring at him eat. Calvin got up and threw the dog a piece of the cake. The dog immediately ran towards it. Within a while, a few more dogs rushed down the road and joined in, fighting over the small piece of cake. So Calvin dropped a few more down to the dogs. But as they desperately ate the cakes, they all turned around, spotting someone walk down the road. And just as the figure reached near, the dogs suddenly ran off again. Calvin looked closely to see a young woman. He recognized her. It was Felicity. She stopped in front of the balcony and looked back at him. Felicity, what are you doing here? Hold on, I'll be right down. Calvin hurried out the hotel front door. What are you doing here so late? I take a walk by the beach every night. There's a tree there where I usually sit. The weather is nice out. Oh, that large tree? I saw it too. It's a ceiba tree. The moon was bright in the sky tonight, and Felicity was looking mesmerizingly beautiful. Calvin couldn't help but stare into her eyes. Come with me. All right, but just as Calvin took a few steps toward her, all of a sudden, the stray dogs ran down the road and jumped in front of him. They all began barking aggressively at Felicity. Careful, Felicity, Calvin shouted. But he was bewildered seeing Felicity quietly standing there as the dogs continued to bark. A heavy gust of wind blew down the road. When Calvin suddenly noticed her dress begin to sway, her feet suddenly lifted off the ground and hovered aloft. Horrified, Calvin stumbled back, seeing Felicity suddenly vanish into thin air. Frightened to his core, he ran back inside. His heart raced as he lay in bed. What did he just see? Was that Felicity or something else? That night, Calvin got a sudden high fever. He was feeling so dreadful, so sick. His condition only worsened, and the next morning the hotel staff took Calvin to the nearby hospital. After being medicated, Calvin was finally able to get some relief. When he woke up later that afternoon, one of the nurses came in. Good afternoon, Mr. Ross. There has been a visitor waiting for you. A visitor? Who? I'll send her in. In just a few moments, the nurse escorted Felicity inside. When suddenly, Calvin fell pale. I was wondering why you didn't come this morning. I called the motel and I heard you were at the hospital, Felicity said as she sat down beside him. How did this happen? But Calvin just stared at her. I saw you last night. At around 11, I was feeding these dogs when you walked down that road. You were going to the beach. At 11? What are you talking about? I was at home. We spoke, Felicity. You asked me to come with you to that ceiba tree, but when I went to join you, something happened. Calvin told Felicity everything that had happened the previous night. When suddenly, the look on Felicity's face changed. It wasn't me. You saw something else. We call her Ishtabe. She's a dark spirit who appears in different forms of people close to you. This way, she lures men to go with her. She takes them to the ceiba tree, where she tears out the hearts of her victims after she fulfills her desires. When you left the hotel the other night, she must have spotted you, No one can escape her once she targets them. They're bound by her spell to follow her. But that night, you were lucky enough to reach the hotel and fell asleep. And last night, the only reason you survived was because of those dogs. They're usually afraid of the Ishtabe, but when you gave them food, they became loyal to you and returned to save you from that dark spirit. If it weren't for them, you wouldn't have survived. Click on the subscribe button and check out more awesome videos on our channel. And don't forget to press the bell icon because you know it's interesting.